Hello and welcome to my channel. This is my first upload ever, so things might be rough in some spots, but I'll do my best. I know the editing and mic quality is not great, and those are two things I hope to improve on in the future. This is going to be a multiple video sort of deal, since I'll be covering every generation of Pokemon. This first video will be covering Gen 1, and I've never played Gen 1, but I've heard a lot of stories about the glitches, how strong the Psychic type is, the Mew under the truck, and much more, so I thought, why not give it a shot? These videos will be playthroughs slash retrospects, since, it's Pokemon. There's not much to say that hasn't already been said. So I'm going to give my personal opinion and show some footage while talking about my favorite and least favorite parts of the games, who my favorite trainers are, and who my favorite Pokemon of the region is. For these playthroughs, I'm going to use Pokemon that I tend to look over, since I thought that could be interesting and help me have a fresh perspective on the games. For sake of time, I decided to only play Blue, and I chose Blue since I prefer Blastoise to Charizard. Here are the main points I'm going to cover: the region, the Pokemon of Kanto, and my personal experience. Now that that's out of the way, feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment down below saying what your favorite Pokemon or Pokemon game is, and if you have any tips for me, that would be greatly appreciated since I'm new and looking to build my channel. Let's get started. I think the best place to start off with, though, is with Kanto itself. Starting off the game, it's pretty much Pokemon in a nutshell. You get your starter, you battle your rival, and then you head off on an adventure. And I think there's something in that simplicity that I can really appreciate. If you want a sort of straight to the point Pokemon game, Red and Blue are pretty good at giving you that. However, the region of Kanto has never really clicked for me, whether I'm playing Fire Red or Let's Go. It's just not a region I feel much. I do, however, have a few places in the region that I do like. Celadon and Vermilion are two of those places. These two cities to me feel very well thought out and interesting, from their vibe to the actual things you can do in them. A couple other places are the Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar and the Safari Zone. The mystique around the mansion is pretty interesting for a game with not much plot, and the Safari Zone is just a fun activity. But when I think about the rest of Kanto, no places really evoke much. I like the random places like the Power Plant or the Seafoam Islands, and I prefer that over the later games just kind of keeping the region in a straight line. But Seafoam Islands are just an icy cave on an island, and the abandoned power plant it's a power plant. It's not that interesting. But they didn't have to be. Kanto excels as a starting point for Pokemon, and when you look at how much the game's expanded on aspects of Kanto, you can really see that Kanto clearly did something right. Regions like Unova are pretty much Kanto on roids, especially considering their dexes, which I'll get into later. The routes in Red and Blue are relatively straightforward. There's a few exceptions where you can go off to a side path, such as with Bill's house, but for the most part, they tend to be a grassy path with minimal turns, and maybe a little here and there. The two Snorlax blocking the routes help divert you into going someplace else, and it really helps the world feel lived in. But you have bland and what I like to call hallway routes like 5 or 6 that just feel like an attempt at making towns feel far apart. I really do wish Kanto had a more interesting climate though, since it's constantly grassland, water, or city. The environment can get a little bit stale. Now, I know it sounds like I'm beating down on Kanto, but I really do like the quaint vibe. It's just that playing through this region in 2025, it's not that interesting. So I think it's a good time to move on to the Pokemon of Kanto. Chances are you know all 151 Pokemon by heart because they did a very good job with this first group. There's a reason Pokemania spread like wildfire. These designs feel cool, charming, and just solid overall. The weak links of this dex, like Jinx or Seal, are a little lackluster, but when the design is good, it's really good. Pokemon like the starters, Mewtwo or Gengar, these are fan favorites to this day, and while nostalgia plays a little bit of a role, I think overall they're very good designs. They hit a perfect balance between friend and monster. I feel like when designing these Pokemon, they kind of just imagine souped up existing animals for the most part, so the more fantastical designs really stick with you. When you look at the type distribution of Kanto, you can see that Poison, Water, Normal, and Flying are the most common types. Poison is the outlier here, but the other three are like the most normal types of them all besides Bug. Like if you were to give a type to an existing animal, they would probably be Normal, Water, Flying, or Bug. And what this does is kind of hard to play through, since this feels like all you encounter for the bulk of the game, for better or for worse. If you like these types, this is a really good thing, but if you like types like Ghost or Dragon, your options are very, very limited. So while there are some big hitters, a lot of this 151 just feels kind of dull. I know I already said Seal, but it's right there. It's literally just a Seal. And even with not mentioning it, you still have some very weak designs like Muck, Krabby, or Goldeen. I know every gen has weak designs, but I think if I were a kid playing the game when it came out, I would still think these designs are lame. I'm mainly saying this because Gen 1 is looked back upon so fondly, and I think the rose-tinted glasses need to come off, and we have to be honest. Another few Pokemon that I think are worth mentioning are the legendary birds. Now, people always say that legendaries are becoming oversaturated, which I can agree. But the newer legendaries look infinitely cooler than the birds. They look somewhat bland, they don't have lore, and they just feel rare, not like legends to me. Two of them have locations that fit, but Moltres is just in Victory Road. That doesn't feel super legendary to me. Overall, this Pokédex is just okay, but again, being just okay is fine. It means you have some winners and some losers. You can't always have winners. Now on to my experience. Playing through Red and Blue felt refreshing in a way. I personally prefer 2D Pokemon to 3D Pokemon, so it's always nice to go back and see the series' roots. Here's my team throughout the playthrough. I chose Squirtle and evolved him at Brock's gym into Wartortle. I picked up a Sandshrew and used him for Misty's gym through Erica's before dumping it in my PC because Sandshrew is really bad, it's not good. I picked up a Meowth before Surge's and evolved him before Erica's. Persian stayed on my team throughout the whole time. I picked up a Vulpix before Erica's and evolved it. I also picked up the Eevee at the mansion in Celadon and evolved it into Jolteon. Now, I know these Pokemon seem like normal choices, but I'm picking Pokemon I've never used. To round out the team, I grabbed an Execute in the Safari Zone before Koga's and an Aerodactyl before Blaine's. I quite like this team since it felt very cohesive, since there were no type overlaps. Whenever I play a Pokemon game, I try to avoid overlaps, but this happened naturally. Over the playthrough, I did start to like these Pokemon a lot more than I expected, and it really helped my outlook on Gen 1. The lack of a plot is both good and bad, since you're pretty much free to do whatever, but I feel like a little bit of story would have been nice. Sometimes it feels like you're just kind of traveling for the sake of traveling, and some of the roadblocks like thirsty guards are really, really silly. I think they did a good job with the gym leaders though. They all feel like experienced trainers and people who have been in your shoes at one point. Out of all the gym leaders, my favorite is definitely Brock, since his sprite is him shirtless doing the Wakanda pose, and I just think, why is this his sprite? This is silly. My favorite Pokemon out of the 151 is definitely Dragonite, so it was a little bit of a bummer that I restricted myself not to use him. But it gave me the chance to try some new Pokemon and see all that Kanto had to offer. These games aren't perfect, in fact, they're far from it, but I had a great time playing them, and I think if you're bored and want a simple Pokemon game, why not? Anyways, that's all I have to say. If you've stayed through the video this far, I can't say just how appreciative I am. Thank you so much for listening to me, even if you don't agree with my takes. I would love to hear in the comments things you would disagree on and why. The next Pokemon video will be covering Gen 2,